Okay.
Welcome everybody to Saturdays with Tara. I'm Mary Beth. You're at the Law of Attraction Club on the web at theloaclub.com. This morning we're going to be talking about channeling, and Robin will be bringing through Tara. Remember to unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. You can also type your questions in the chat to the right of your screen if you're wanting to do that. So over to you, Robin and Tara.
And good morning, good afternoon, depending on, or good evening, depending on where you are when you are engaging in this soiree of ours, when you are mixing it up with us and intersecting. And we would say up front here to remember that this is not something being presented to you, although in one sense that is true, but it is much more than that. It is you participating in this. For everything in your experience is that which you attract. We could call it everything in experience is that which you create, and both terms are accurate because you attract that which is a match to you, which matches your beliefs and thoughts and expectations, and as you change those, you change what you attract, and therefore you are creating, in a very real sense of the word, everything around you. And as we have been saying recently, every time you make a new belief choice, you step into a new version of you and a new version of everything else that matches that new version of you, wraps itself around you. That is your surroundings, that is your environment, that is your world. But it is the one that you are creating, and this conversation, this intersection we are having is no exception to any of that. It is your creation. And so, as Mary Beth introduced this session, we are talking ostensibly here today about channeling, and that is true. But we're also talking always much more than that, about much more than that. We are talking about the nature of who you are, because we cannot talk about channeling and, as we say, debunk the myths, demystify the process without having you understand the nature of who you are. It is all bound up together, you see. And channeling, which this one is doing here, somewhat overtly and deliberately and obviously, is as normal and natural as having breakfast for all of you. It isn't some sort of gift that only some people have. If you allow your source connection to be a conscious part of you, then you will be channeling. It's as simple as that. In this one's world, and yours may be similar, there was a historic event last year, which was Carole King being presented the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize. It was an event at the White House. And in Carole King's words, songwriting is just a matter of getting out of the way and letting the process be driven by whatever is guiding me. And we can think of no better definition of channeling than that. And here in very ordinary society, in a very extraordinary event, but very public event, these words are being spoken. And there is no outcry in the press that this is all too woo-woo, because the words are innocent enough, are they not? You could interpret those as saying it's just a matter of letting my imagination run free. And in reality, what we are going to be talking about here today is that that's one and the same thing. Because what is your imagination? It is your connection to Source. It is you mixing it up in a way that perhaps you are not so obviously conscious of with everything else, with all that is. It's just a matter of getting out of the way and letting the process be driven by whatever is guiding you. So what do you think channeling is? And this one, of course, had been heavily engaged with Abraham being channeled by Esther Hicks for a long time, for over 2,000 hours of listening to their audio and being at their seminars and even sitting in the hot seat. But he had no idea what channeling really was. He knew, of course, that it was something he would never do. And there was something special perhaps about Esther that allowed her to do that. But what kept him engaged, if you like, with the process was that he was hearing things that for the first time made sense to him. He was hearing things that rang true. There were many questions that remained, but many of the puzzle pieces started falling into place. Then came this community, of course, and all of this process with unlimited access to us and more answers and so on. And now, of course, here he is channeling. There are many reasons why this thing you call channeling is an important topic and why we talk much about it here. As we say, for starters, it's a very visible part of what goes on in this community. In the intersections that we have with all of you, we are pushing the boundaries of our understanding. We are going where no man has gone before, moving into new territory as we explore together the nuances of this game of life on Earth. And so, as we have begun in this process with this one to explore this subject once more, in the very creation of this discussion here, in this time and place in your space-time reality, we are moving to new levels of understanding and describing this process somewhat differently. Nothing stands still, everything continues to evolve. And this one is always being fascinated by the fact that he thinks he has reached a level of understanding beyond which there is not much more. And then, of course, he discovers that there is more, and there is more, and there is more, and there will ever be more, because, in fact, you are dealing with a small part of all of this, are you not? And as you begin to expand your mind into understanding of more and more, so more opens up. The more that you understand, the more your perimeter of the mystery expands also. And so here you are, and here we are engaged in this conversation together. And it's also an important topic for each of you personally. And we mean each of you. Because it's a resource you can tap into, but not only that. But let's talk about that. It can help open you up to new possibilities and an ongoing awareness of who you are. Yes, we're going to explore here the nature of channeling and encourage you to see that, yes, you too can channel. It can be fun. It can support you. It can confirm your alignment and be a source of inner guidance. Like all other topics, there are some things about it that are absolute. In other words, there are some things about the nature of who you are that mean that you are not a choice about them. We could say you are channeling already because that connection between you and all that is exists. And then there's your story about it, which is your choice. It's simply those things you have chosen to believe. And as we've been talking a lot recently, there is no right or wrong story. There is no right or wrong way of doing things. There is just your story. And your story includes everything in your physical world. It includes the physical you. It includes the shape of your consciousness. It includes everything in your non-physical world. It includes everything in your experience, physical and non-physical. That is your story. And if you channel, and we promise you you already are, but if you channel consciously, it will be your story also. It will be partly you defining everything about it. And everything that you channel will be your definition. You will set the boundaries for all of it. You set the boundaries for everything in your world. First, let us look some more at this, what we are calling a mechanism, of which channeling is just one part. What is often not well understood is that there's an always-on connection between, let's call it A, you, clump A, and B, let's call it your subconscious, for want of a better word. It is that place that you have stored everything that you want to have your automatic responses take care of. It is your genie in a bottle, if you will. You say to your subconscious, I want you to walk me, and this is how I walk, and you learn to walk. And as you learn to walk, you store it in your subconscious. And you say to your subconscious, effectively, from now on, when I need to walk from here to the door, I'm going to leave you to make all the decisions about that, about how to stand up, which muscles to use, where to put my feet, how to avoid objects. I'm going to think of none of that. That's your job. And can you see that the nature of your subconscious is such that you have spent a lifetime training it to do things? You've spent a lifetime training it to do all of these things. When you learnt to drive a car, perhaps, the first time you try it, it's terrifying because you're trying to do things consciously. It is only after you've passed most of that to your subconscious, you could say all of it really, to your subconscious, and allow it to get on with its task of doing all those things, that driving becomes easy. So your subconscious is, as we say, the genie in the bottle. You spent your life training it, and it faithfully follows all of your directions. Now, of course, some of those directions perhaps not serving you as you would like. And it is those things that we are all on about here, are we not? It's those things that we are all talking about tweaking. So there's you and your subconscious, always connected, always connected. Your subconscious is making almost all of the decisions. It seems like you're making decisions, but it's your subconscious. And then there's, let's call it your higher self, your inner being, however you wish to describe it. You are always connected with that. You and your subconscious and your higher self are in this trinity, if you will, that makes up you. And the connection between you and your higher self and your subconscious and your higher self and you and your subconscious is always on, as we say. It is always there. And then, of course, back through any other millions of infinities of connection, there is source. All that is, the universe or God. And you are connected to all of that. If you exist, then you have this connection. It's a part of everybody's existence. It's a part of your existence. It is fundamental to who you are. If that connection was not there, you would not exist. You may be partly aware of this connection, this more extended part of you, as something, as a subtle inner voice perhaps. You may be unaware of it. You may be pulling away from it. In other words, you may be heading in a direction in which It does not want to encourage you to go. And as we discussed last week, if you are doing that, you will not be feeling good. That is the way you know that you are pulling away from it. But you can never sever that connection because you cannot exist without it. It is there. It is fundamental to who you are. Now, being in the physical realm, and we've been talking about these things as clumps, discrete clumps, like A, B, C, and D. Well, now we need to blur the lines a little because you're actually a non-physical entity, even as we are. The physical stuff and that clumpy stuff is an illusion. And in non-physical, there are no boundaries and beginnings and ends. So this mechanism we're talking about is not so much a connection between clumps. It's not like a cable stretched between A and B. It is a merging of energies. If source was white light, then dividing that light gives a spectrum. Being in the physical realm, you see things as discrete clumps. But in that spectrum, what is the definition of the place that defines the difference between red and yellow, for example? You see, there is no such place. There is only more red or more yellow. And as we look at this, and as you see this, can you see what we mean when we are saying there are no boundaries, there are no beginnings and ends, there is only more or less? There is all that is the white light from which you start. All of this starts. Or the collective consciousness, or the universe, or God, or call it what you will. It is the totality of everything. And then there are the extensions, or the pieces, or the parts of that. None of those words defines it well. But there is an individuality to you. There is an individuality to us. Let us say the conscious you sits somewhere in that red part of the spectrum. And then there's a subconscious you. And then there's an inner being or a higher self, depending on how you want to call it. And that makes up, if you like, the you. But there is no boundary between your inner being and us. There is just connection. There is just a merging. There is just a flow. There is a knowing and a thinking and a communication. And it is going on all the time. It is a part of you. And we are just talking here today about the nature of that and having you understand that. You are not a small clump, a speck on a big earth. But this physical world you see that you think is where you are and what you are on and what you are engaged with and sharing with everybody else perhaps. This is your focus, is it not? This is where you are. You are dealing with this. You are part of the substance of this planet. But we're telling you, you are not a speck on a huge planet. You are the creator of this. So see this world rather than being a part of your surroundings and your environment. We want you to see this world as it is, that you are creating it, that you are imagining it into beingness, that you are the source of it. It is not the container for you. You are the container for it. And we understand that you are engaged with it. This is a very engaging game, is it not? But we want to disengage you from it in a sense. We want to persuade you that there is another way of looking at this. And as you become aware of the way of looking at things, and as you start to look at things that way, so you more naturally start to see this world as your creation. You start to get a perspective, you see. You start to understand who you are. So let's look at your day-to-day out-of-hour thinking. For a lot of that time, you're on a train of thought. One thought leads to another down a familiar track. We are using approximate terms here, and that is the nature of language, is it not? And it is approximation, but we could say that be your subconscious. We're calling it subconscious, but as we said, it is not a clump. It is a part of that energy that is you. But it's the part that we can most easily describe as saying it is providing the tracks of thought, the trains of thought, the connections between different things. It is providing the timetable. And you are occasionally, that real you, the conscious thinking you, are occasionally making decisions that override it. In fact, this whole conversation is about making decisions that override it. And as you are on this train of thought, along comes sometimes a totally new idea. Well, where does that come from? Does it come out of your imagination? Does it come out of the blue? Well, from a material perspective, of course, it is just a random firing of neurons and you have thought of something different. Well, we want to expand your idea along these lines a little more than that. See, this is where your higher self gets involved. And once again, we are using approximations because there is no something that's a higher self. There is only more or less higher self and more or less conscious you. But every new thought and new idea comes in part from your higher self. So can you see that you are engaged in this act of exchange with your higher self on a regular basis? It is an always-on connection and you are always engaged with it. It's what leads Carole King to say it's simply a matter of getting out of the way. And her peer, her companion at that ceremony, her partner, her friend at that ceremony was James Taylor, and he has used similar words. He says things like, I'm just the one that heard it first. In other words, I heard the song and I remembered it and I wrote it down. But he does not claim to be the creator of it. He recognizes and understands that there is something beyond him that is actually doing this. In fact, he has used the words channeling, although we suspect that he does not really understand that channeling process very well. We know that he does not. But that's the best way he can describe it. And he does not know that he is describing it very accurately. Every new thought and new idea comes in part from your inner being. But the point here is that these different energies that are you are always participating, more or less, in your experience. They are always a part of you. So what's absolute about channeling, and by that we mean what you are not at choice about, is that it's simply one way of having your higher self, your inner being, and source and everything in between and beyond you, be more involved in your world, be a more conscious part of your everyday experience. Like everything else in your world, unique to you, making it conscious is a choice. The ability to channel in the traditional sense of the word isn't some sort of gift that only some people have. The spectrum of source that contains you is the same spectrum that contains everybody. If you choose to make some of this connection conscious, you will be channeling. It's as simple as that. What form will it take? It could be writing. It could be, as we have described, songwriting. It could be painting, sculpting, or speaking, or anything you choose. What entities will you communicate with? Well, even as you create your physical world around you and you populate it with people you intersect with, so it is you create your non-physical world. You will intersect with whatever you have chosen to believe is possible. And perhaps we should tackle the subject of negative energy here. Is there anything to fear in all of this? And so we have moved away from absolutes here, of course. There is nothing negative or fearful about all that is, or you, or source energy. And so, is there anything to fear? We say, you tell us. As with all things, you will create your own reality with this. As always, simply choose what feels good. That will never lead you astray. How will you know it's happening? Well, fundamentally, if you're getting new ideas, and you all do, it's happening. But you could say, will it ever feel like communicating with something other than just me? And we would say yes. And let's use voice channeling as an example, as is going on right here and now. Channeling is a collaboration between different parts of that spectrum and you. So how do you know what you're saying is at least partly them or something else, something out there? You will be getting blocks of thought. And for some of those, even if you get them, you will know, you will be thinking, that wasn't my idea. You may notice physical changes. And as you relax into this, you will be more and more comfortable with it. You'll be more and more aware of the fact that it's a collaboration that's going on here. It is a communication between you and something else. It's an interchange. What does a block of thought feel like? Well, let's look at something up front here. Because this one discovered not so long ago when he was doing videos. But when you are speaking, normally and naturally, you do not choose your words. You have a thought you want to express, a block of thought, let's call it, and your subconscious provides the words. In other words, your whole conversation when you are speaking is not about picking words. You do not have the horsepower you see up front in that thinking mind of yours, that conscious part of you, to handle all of that. You passed that to your subconscious a long time ago as you learned to speak. And that is why for many of you, public speaking is such a challenge. Because when you are public speaking and you're up there in front of all those people, you know that you have to say the right things. And so you try to consciously speak the words that you want to say. In fact, you will see many people writing it down and reading it. And why is somebody reading a speech much less convincing than having them just talk? Because you know that they are artificially and consciously generating those words. When you try to speak consciously with particular words, you cannot think about the next sentence that you want to say. And so it becomes very difficult. It becomes very disjointed. It becomes terrifying to some, and you just can't do it naturally. Your conscious processor doesn't have the horsepower to do it. And learning to speak confidently, publicly, and easily is learning to relax into your natural ability to speak without choosing words. You see, you tell your subconscious, here is what I want to say, and your subconscious says it. And that's what a block of thought is, and that's what it's like in the channeling process. Channeled speaking is not like somebody whispering words into your ear that you can repeat. Channeling is never a takeover of you as a delivery vehicle. You get blocks of thought and express them in the same way as you do today. Channeling is never a takeover process. It is never a possession, even in deep trance channeling. You are involved. You are always calling the shots. It's just that the shots are, to some extent, a collaboration. You are thinking with two minds, and you will be aware of it. You will know it. And once you understand this, once again, once you look at the world from this perspective, you will see evidence all around you of people channeling, consciously or unconsciously. You will hear authors and songwriters and painters describing how something outside of them was part of the process. There's a Danish author just recently who wrote a multi-volume autobiography, although it's really, as he described it, a novel, because he's not willing to give it the air of facts. But he started out writing 5 pages a day and ended up writing 15 pages a day to a total of 3,500 pages. And his novel, in many volumes, was a huge success. It was very engaging. As one critic said, even the boring parts are interesting. And that is the nature, you see, of channeling and allowing this stuff to flow. And you can do it. It's as normal and natural as having breakfast. It's just being a part of who you are. It is not learning to channel in a very real sense. It is unlearning not to channel, because channel is a natural part of you. And as we said, in the mechanism behind it is already happening. It's already there. It is just a matter of allowing yourself to recognize that it's there. And so here you are, this conscious thinking being. We are looking forward to any discussion or questions you have on this topic. We will leave you with these words. It's just a matter of getting out of the way. And truer words were never spoken. And so, Mary Beth, we pass the baton back to you, and we open the floor for any questions that may be.
Anybody have a question or a comment? We have some channels on this call, so it would be wonderful to hear from you. Giora?
So if I take myself out of the way, it doesn't only open the channeling connection so that it can come to my consciousness and I can notice it and use it, utilize it, or converse with it. But it also makes me go downstream in every aspect of my life. So I take myself out of the way.
Indeed. You raise a very good point. And that is one of the reasons, of course, that we encourage everybody to open up this connection to, if you like, unlearn how not to channel and allow themselves to engage in it. Because all that is, source, God, if you will, is pure positive energy. There's nothing negative in it. There is no pinched offness about it. It cannot be. And the only reason we use the word positive is to ensure that you understand that And so as you allow yourself to be more in that awareness, it must inevitably follow that you are allowing yourself more to pursue that which you want. You're allowing yourself more to understand the greatness of who you are and the power that you have. And there can be nothing negative about that, you see. And so as you rightly point out, Giora, yes, it is a way of supporting yourself. Yes.
So here's another thing coming up. So doing what I really want, right? What I truly want, and going downstream in this way, having no conflicting movements in my mind, comes to me through the connection, meaning that what I really want to do is coming from that. It's coming from source.
We would say, we would put it this way. You, the thinking you, are the one. You are the source of the choices. But the choices you make, of course, are a function of your experience. That is what this game is all about. It is separating yourself into this clump called you, this conscious thinking you. You separate yourself by an intention. I would like to experience that, and you experience that. And as you experience that, there are parts of it that you want more and parts you want less, until you make new choices and you experience new things. And as you get ideas about that world, so you make new choices. So we would say, you can think of it this way, and we have said there are no boundaries in all of this, Giora, and of course as you see yourself in this somewhat, how can we put it, in this somewhat closely defined environment that you are in, with this closely defined consciousness, when in this space-time reality, if you like, you call life on Earth, where most of you here are experiencing this, as you are in this place on the leading edge of creation. We call it that because your experiences are unique here, and the focus is unique. And in that environment, you are making choices about it, but you are reaching back always to that connection to all that is. And you are seeing in a way that is not perhaps so obviously conscious to you. You are experiencing and seeing and feeling that which is you back at source. And there is no separation between those two. But we would say to you, Gora, you, the conscious thinking you that's hearing these words right now, is always at choice here. It is you trump everything. But you have at your resources in order to make those choices an infinite variety of attachments and connections and aspects of different things, of worlds, of greatness, of joy. And so that is, if you like, the background to your game here. Did any of that make sense to you?
I kind of relate to it visually.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, I mean, I tried it to see when I close my eyes, where is my boundary? and at most, it's a very fuzzy place.
Indeed.
And so it's like in the picture of the prism, how the light separates. If I move a little bit more in one direction, I'm more in the source side. And if I move a little bit backward, or whichever direction it is, I'm more in the forgetting who I am. And so I see it as that. I mean, this picture was formed now in my mind when you talked. That actually, yeah, I understand it. It depends on where I move my focus,
yes,
my listening.
Indeed.
Okay.
And the you that is making that decision, of course, is the you to which we refer to as Giora.
But if I become very, very aware and peaceful and quiet, and I see my thoughts, then the thought that came to make me decide to go more to listen to source, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
just appeared. I didn't form it. It just appeared in my mind.
Mm. Well, you were talking about the fuzzy nature of this interconnection, this boundary between you and it, are you not?
Yes.
And so, yes, as you allow yourself to recognize who you are more and more, which is your natural state of being, so this fuzziness, if you will, this lack of boundary becomes more and more clear to you, becomes more and more of a part of you, becomes more and more who you are.
Yes.
And we rush to say here at this point, of course, that none of this is intended to talk you out of this game that you were in, because you chose this game. You chose this physical space-time reality. You chose this particular shape of your consciousness in order to play this game and experience all of these things we are talking about. It is the backdrop you have chosen, if you will. It is the context you have chosen for all of this. And we would never try to talk you out of that game. We are simply here in response to your questions about how can I make this game more fun? How can I have more of what I want? And we are talking about all of these things as a means to that end. We are talking you into remembering who you are rather than forgetting who you are. We are talking you into unlearning how not to channel in order that you may slip into this as a resource with which you can play the game. It is like new tools. It is like your video games. When you get to certain levels, you get awarded new tools, new weapons, new resources to pursue the game, and that's what we are doing here. We wouldn't call them weapons, but we are giving you an aspect to allow you to see things more clearly. And this whole process is, in fact, all about that. It is not to take you out of the game. It is to let you be in the game in a more engaged and understanding and joyful way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you choose to leave the game, of course you may. There is nothing to prevent you.
Aren't we all going to quit the game one day?
Well, in one version of you do today. Which version do you want to step into?
For now, to know who I am and still play.
Exactly. And the more you do that, the more the game becomes fun, and the less you would want to leave it.
Mm.
You see, this business of channeling, it's like the business of feeling good. In some ways, channeling is a bad word, and there's so much garbage out there about channeling. There's so much that is misunderstood about channeling, and yet it is such a normal and natural process. And we are just having you understand who you really are, and to understand that this process, this understanding, this perspective on everything is a normal and natural part of you. And it should be simple and easy for you. And we understand that your focus on worldly things and your focus on who you are as a conscious entity and how you are as a physical clump has taken you in many cases away from that to some extent as an understanding and an awareness. And we're just trying to, if you like, restore the awareness of who you are into its rightful place. We are just seeking to have you step into this role of creator in a little more powerful way. Mm.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question or comment?
If is there another word that
Yeah.
can replace channeling that could be commonplace? You know, instead of saying car, it's an automobile. Instead of saying sedan, overseas it's called a saloon. So is there another word for that could be commonplace for channeling that doesn't have a, you know, stigma?
Mm,
Mm.
good point. We have tried. Go ahead, Tara.
Yes, indeed. It is. We are now, if you like, wrestling with the challenge of language and the way in which it's defined, are we not? And if there was another word for channeling, then it would, and it was understood, then with the world as this one perceives it, which may be similar to the way you are perceiving and creating it, it would probably end up with the same stigma. And so between us kids, as we say, between us lot, what word could we use to describe it? And channeling is not a great word because it implies that there's a conduit or a pipeline, and you are simply this one is simply delivering something that's been put into one end out the other end, and that is absolutely not the case, as you are all aware. It is a collaboration. So we could call it a collaboration with your inner being. We could call it creativity. We could call it translation, because you certainly are translating a block of thought, even as you do in regular speech. It's just that the block of thought is coming from a joint mind, so to speak. It's coming from a collective mind more than just the conscious thinking you're used to thinking with. And so we are not answering your question very well here, Patrick. We understand. And there is no one.
Good.
Yes, there is no one word that this one can come up with which better conveys the essence of it all.
Well, that's good because then that leaves infinite possibilities for the creation of one or more. So that's
Indeed.
very good. And I like what was said earlier about you learn to walk. Everything, tasks like that become effortless, and that's the way it is with channeling. There's no learning, no effort required, and that's I guess my version of my reality I want to be in, where it's just literally a part of who I am, automatic, and it's like having the Times Square billboard always there inside of me. Stuff comes
Exactly.
flashing through.
You are never alone. Yes. And we've talked not a lot today here about the stories about channeling, but you will hear a million stories out there in the city. There are many stories about channeling. There are stories about having to do things this way, having to learn this for years, having to do this, having to do that, and so on and so on. And Esther is meditated for 9 months before she was able to allow it to be a process that could be interpreted. So there's many stories about the way it is and what you should do and shouldn't do in order to channel, and that it can be physically draining, and that even that there are things you need to be careful of, that you need to fear and put up barriers about. We will talk some more of those as we go through the week here.
Good, good.
But you see, that's your story about it. And the real story about it is it's just a part of who you are. And you can relax into it any time. And when you do, as you know, Patrick, when you do, you discover that it was easy. It's like learning to ride a bike. You have to learn to ride a bike, you think. And then once you can ride a bike, how easy is it? So you have learned to do things naturally. And so it is a process of discovering who you are. And it is more unlearning than learning. It's unlearning that you cannot do it. And it's allowing some of that stream that is always going on. It is recognizing it for what it is. It is seeing it for what it is. And it is participating in it in a conscious way. And when you do that, it's like, my God, this is easy. This is natural. This is normal. And there are no rules about it. You can make up rules if you wish. Whatever you choose to believe about it will be your world. You are believing things about the earth. There's nothing about this earth that you don't know, because if you don't know about it, it is unknowable because you are creating it. There's nothing about entities you can channel that you don't already know, because you'll be the one that creates it. And whether you give names to it like Terah or Abraham or August Moon or whatever, Metatron, it matters not. It'll be your creation. And so you are always in charge. We encourage all of you to enter that place of doing it, allowing it, being it, feeling it, having it as a resource, and having fun with it all. So, Patrick, did we answer your question?
Yes, yeah, and it'll be fun to explore, as you mentioned, later in the week.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm sure what myself and Rachel will bring through will complement what Robin has just brought through and yet be somewhat different.
Of course.
So it'll be interesting.
And see, here in this community, it is a first in this one's world. It's a first. That is the ability to explore a topic from different points of view through different collaborations with different physical clumps of you. And what fun it is to do that. We are enjoying this game immensely. So we would say, remember, it's just a matter of getting out of the way. And if there are no more questions, Mary Beth, we are complete.
Good. Well, thank you, everybody. And much love to all of you. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Terah.
Thank you.